Good morning, alien enthusiasts, and welcome to another Angry Alien Bulletin. Once again, as usual, didn't really plan on talking about 3I Atlas today, but here we are talking about it again. I was actually going to talk about some astronomical phenomena that have been manifesting themselves, strangely, at about the same time as this object has been passing through our solar system. Odd things that have been happening thousands or even millions of light years away that have defied all natural explanation. At some point, I'm going to get to that, but right now, 3I Atlas keeps rearing its ugly head with new developments. The most recent development is immediately after some images were captured by a number of instruments that were demonstrating an anti-tail, something that we've known about with 3I Atlas for a while. But in this particular image, which you're looking at right here, it is a jet, a very distinctive jet that is very, very obvious even to an instrument that's looking at this object from millions and millions of kilometers away, spearing out towards the sun. And then in the aftermath of all of these developments, 3I Atlas appears to have developed a more conventional tail. And Avi Loeb, in a recent article, was talking about the prospect of maybe even downgrading the alien classification of 3I Atlas on his Loeb scale that goes from 0 to 10. 10 being the highest probability of it being an alien artifact of some kind, down to 0 where there's no chance, going from a 4 down to a 2. And then all of a sudden, all of this starts to happen. The International Asteroid Warning System, the IAWS, they have now decided to monitor this object. Apparently, a decision was made on the part of this organization to start monitoring this object for some bizarre reason. And at the same time, an independent group of, I think, backyard astronomers, essentially, but people who definitely know what they're talking about when it comes to the data that they've been providing in their articles. They claim that according to recent observations, in other words, observations made right before 3I Atlas disappeared behind the sun, vanished from our perspective, all of a sudden this object started to change course. Again, I can't confirm that at all. I can't say for certain that that's what's going on. They provide a lot of data, which I'm going to share with you here in a little bit, but still, I'm not going to say with any kind of certainty that this is definitely what is happening. And then on top of all of that, NASA is continuing to hide, or at least decline to reveal, the photographs that have been captured, the footage that has been captured by the various probes orbiting Mars, which have much better instruments than the images that have been captured thus far, mostly by ESA probes. Instead, NASA has some much better, much superior imagery of 3I Atlas that was captured from a unique perspective from orbiting Mars rather than orbiting Earth. And of course, 3I Atlas passed much, much closer to Mars than it's passing to Earth. So definitely the potential of getting a better image of this object and getting an idea of how big the nucleus might be, perhaps even the shape of the nucleus. All of these amazing facts are definitely in the hands of JPL and NASA right now, and they still aren't revealing anything. But at the same time, NASA is connected to this organization, the IAWN. Why would they be green-lighting a sudden decision to start monitoring this object if there was nothing strange about it? So I'm going to bring you all the details on what's happening with 3I Atlas right now. Okay, first of all, let's get started with this news from the IAWN, and I'm going to be quoting extensively from a Medium article by Dr. Avi Loeb. As usual, quote, "An editorial notice by the Minor Planet Center announced that the interstellar object 3I Atlas has just been targeted in a new campaign initiated by a United Nations-endorsed group focused on the defense of Earth against space objects. The International Asteroid Asteroid Warning Network, IAWN, is a worldwide planetary defense collaboration of organizations and individual astronomers who collectively work to detect, monitor, and characterize potentially hazardous asteroids and near-Earth objects. 3I Atlas is the first interstellar object targeted by its campaigns. So keep in mind, they didn't target Oumuamua, nor did they target 2I Borisov. On the date of the solar conjunction of 3I Atlas relative to Earth, in other words, on the day that 3I Atlas is exactly opposite Earth's location relative to the Sun, October 21st, 2025, IAWN made the following announcement, quote, "Comets present unique challenges for accurate astrometric measurements and orbit predictions. Cometary bodies are extended with morphological features such as comet and tails that can systematically pull their centroid measurements off their central brightness peak, presenting challenges to estimate comet trajectories." The International Asteroid Warning Network, IAWN, announces a comet campaign from November 27th of 2025 through January 27th, 2026 to introduce methods for improving astrometry from comet observations. The campaign will target Comet 3I Atlas to exercise the capability of the observing community to extract accurate astrometry. To prepare for the campaign, we will hold a workshop on techniques to correctly measure comet astrometry. So in other words, there's going to be hundreds of telescopes all over the world pointed at 3I Atlas, trying to figure out its trajectory, looking for aberrations, looking for changes in behavior, or perhaps some sort of cometary outgassing, anything that might cause it to go off course. And of course, my big question is, why has this suddenly become such a concern for the IAWN? Registration is required by November 7th. So in other words, if you're a backyard astronomer, you might want to register for this campaign. And this is, by the way, a registration for the workshop, and only those participants that attend the workshop can participate in the campaign. Interestingly, this announcement follows a white paper that Avi Loeb submitted on September 30th, 2025 to the United Nations in collaboration with Omer Eldaldi and Gershon Tenenbaum. This white paper advocating for coordinating global scientific research to maximize observational coverage and ensure optimal scientific monitoring of interstellar objects like 3I Atlas, which could pose a threat to humanity if they happen to carry alien technology. Black swan events with small probabilities must be considered seriously if their implications to the future of humanity are large. As of now, 3I Atlas displayed 8 surprising qualities that earned it a rank of 4 out of 10 on the Loeb scale, as he calls it. Number 1, the trajectory is aligned to within 5 degrees of the ecliptic plane of planets around the Sun, with a likelihood of 0.2%. During July and August of 2025, it displayed a sunward jet or anti-tail that is not an optical illusion from geometric perspective, which, by the way, has never happened before. Number 3, its nucleus is about 1,000,000 times more massive than 1I Oumuamua and 1,000 times more massive than 2I Borisov, while moving faster than both, with a likelihood of less than 0.1%. Number 4, its arrival time was fine-tuned to bring it within tens of millions of kilometers from Mars, Venus, and Jupiter, and be unobservable from Earth at perihelion with a likelihood of 0.005%. Number 5, the gas plume around 3I Atlas contains much more nickel than iron, as found in industrial-produced nickel alloys, and a nickel to cyanide ratio that is orders of magnitude larger than of all known comets, including 2I Borisov, with a likelihood below 1%. All of these incredibly unlikely probabilities are really starting to pile up here. Number 6, the gas plume of 3I Atlas contains only 4% water by mass, a primary constituent of familiar comets. One thing that he doesn't mention, though, is that 3I Atlas made a huge dump of water, a massive jet of water suddenly erupted from the object again shortly before it disappeared behind the sun. Keep in mind, if this were an artificial object, and if it were about to execute some sort of maneuver around the sun to bring it onto a different trajectory, then dumping as much mass as possible prior to doing this would be a logical next step. Number 7, 3I Atlas showed extreme negative polarization, unprecedented for all known comets, including 2I Borisov, with a likelihood below 1%. So this is about light polarization. Bears no resemblance to any comet that we've ever seen. And then finally, number 8, 3I Atlas arrived from a direction coincident with the radio WOW signal to within 9 degrees with a likelihood of 0.6%. And then I would also like to point out that 3I Atlas displayed virtually no non-gravitational acceleration in spite of what appears to be obvious outgassing. That shouldn't be happening, even if it's an extremely heavy comet. I keep bringing up the famous comet Hale-Bopp, which was an enormous comet, but still demonstrated non-gravitational acceleration as it flew through the solar system because of cometary outgassing. So it was holding its course until perhaps recently, when all of a sudden it started diverting off its course radically. Okay, so now at this point, I'm going to be quoting from a Medium article written by an organization called Earth Exists. Under normal circumstances, I would ignore these sorts of articles, or at least take them with a grain of salt, simply because I haven't had a chance to thoroughly vet them, and also because the information about this organization is a little difficult to accurately vet in the first place. But in any event, the reason I'm reporting on it is because what they say is happening with 3I Atlas seems to correspond to a decision to start monitoring it a lot more closely, because its trajectory isn't what was anticipated. So let's go ahead and relate what these folks had to say. On October 21st, 2025, while tracking interstellar object 3I Atlas through observational data, including astronomical evidence and multiple analysis testing, something became immediately obvious. The object wasn't where NASA's JPL Horizon system said it should be. JPL's official prediction placed 3I Atlas at right ascension 13 hours, 46 minutes, 57.51 seconds, and declination at -8 degrees, 15 minutes, 20 seconds, using astrometric reference frames. However, their observations calculated right ascension 13 hours, 47 minutes, 54.3 seconds, and declination of -8, 21 minutes, 16.2 seconds. The discrepancy is 15.4 arc minutes, which is absolutely enormous for an object in the night sky. At 3I Atlas's distance of 2.38 astronomical units, which is 356 million kilometers, this angular offset translates to roughly 1.1 million kilometers of lateral displacement. That's almost 20 times the deviation that was observed with Oumuamua when it started to accelerate out of the solar system. And also, for perspective, that's nearly 3 times the Earth-Moon distance. But here's what made it extraordinary. The distance measurement was perfect, the same 2.38 astronomical unit reading. We were looking at the right object, at the right range, just at the wrong location. If our observation software we are using is outdated orbital data, perhaps from July or August before JPL's October 10th update, you'd expect 3I Atlas to appear behind its actual position. Old predictions always lag reality because they underestimate velocity or miss gravitational nudges, and I agree with that. As 3I Atlas gets closer to the sun, it should start accelerating because the sun's Gravitational influence continues to increase on the object as it gets closer, but 3I Atlas appeared ahead, not behind, ahead, same distance, different sky position. This breaks the rules of orbital mechanics unless something pushed it sideways. So we decided to keep watching, and guess what happened? The gap grew even wider. By 1905 UTC, 19 hours after our first observation measurement, we captured another position reading. Right ascension 13 hours, 46 minutes, 20.4 seconds. Declination -8 degrees, 14 minutes, 24.2 seconds. Interpolating GPL's predictions for that exact time, 3I Atlas should have been at roughly right ascension 13 hours, 46 minutes, 56 seconds, declination -8 hours, 8 minutes, 32 seconds, with a new discrepancy of 10.5 arc minutes. The gap had already widened by over 4 arc minutes in less than a day. The object wasn't just off course. We believe it's actively diverging from gravitational predictions at a rate of 0.23 arc minutes per hour. To maintain this divergence requires approximately 3.95 kilometers per second of lateral velocity that gravity alone cannot explain. As a matter of fact, that's a significant deviation that rocket engines would have a hard time accomplishing, especially with an object as huge as 3I Atlas. Now, this group made a couple of other observations about the morphology of 3I Atlas, patterns being seen in the coma, geometric sorts of shapes, that sort of thing, according to different astronomical observations, mostly being made by backyard astronomers with Dobsonian telescopes, that sort of thing. But I'm not inclined to talk a whole lot more about that because we humans have a tendency of seeing these sorts of patterns, geometric shapes, whatever, in natural objects. Until I see something really obvious, until I see something really distinctive from sources that I trust, I'm going to withhold any sort of judgment on these sorts of things. I'm not saying that it's not true. I'm simply saying there isn't enough evidence yet to really talk about that intelligently. But if the rest of this is true, and once again, I suspect that it might be given the sudden interest that the Asteroid Warning Network suddenly has in it, well, by the time 3I Atlas emerges from the glare of the sun and we can get a good look at it again at the beginning of November, this object might be on a very different course indeed. So once again, I need to reemphasize time and time again that I cannot 100% guarantee or confirm the information that this group on Medium has shared, even though their data seems to be very specific, very detailed, and they seem to know what they're talking about. And if they are indeed correct about this, and we're looking at 3I Atlas shifting hundreds of thousands of kilometers off course, as we said in the video, much, much more than a Oumuamua actually did, something that would be very difficult to explain with traditional cometary outgassing. And if this is indeed the case, if 3I Atlas emerges from the other side of the sun significantly off course, far more off course than any natural process could possibly explain, this is probably going to be the most significant discovery in the history of astronomy, perhaps even the most significant discovery in the history of science, because it's going to be very difficult to make the claim that this object is somehow this far off course by some sort of natural process. Instead, artificial explanations are going to be the only ones we have left. And if this thing makes an Oberth maneuver around the sun, which will require an immense shift in its trajectory, and starts making its way towards Earth, well, it's not going to be a matter of scientific discovery anymore. It's going to be a matter of planetary defense, a matter of fear, and a matter of preserving the future of the human species. But once again, we need to be completely clear about this. We have no evidence so far, no confirmed evidence for certain that 3I Atlas is doing anything odd, and definitely no confirmed evidence that 3I Atlas is making this big of a trajectory shift. A few 100,000 kilometers is one thing. Millions and millions of kilometers off course is quite another. It would require an immense amount of power, a nuclear drive of immense proportions in order to push an object as big as 3I Atlas off of its current course onto an interception course with Earth. Not saying it's impossible. I'm saying that it would be a very, very difficult thing to do, and we have no evidence thus far to suggest that that's actually what's happening. So no need to panic. I want to be 100% clear about this. I'm not panicking right now, and I don't think any of you should be either. If 3I Atlas suddenly pops out on the other side of the sun and is bearing down on our planet, then it's time to get concerned. But until that actually happens, we just need to sit back, relax, and enjoy this unique event in the history of astronomy. Thanks again for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and until next time, stay angry about space.